Even news which appear political in nature can have issues and terms which are relevant for your UPSC examination. Today, we are going to deal with one such issue. Hello everyone, I am Manas Srivastava. Welcome to UPSC Essentials of the Indian Express. And today, we are going to restart with something called key terms and issues. Our topic for today is defamation and disqualification of MPs. The two buzzwords जो आपने न्यूज़ में काफ़ी सुना होगा. आपको लगता होगा that this is political in nature. Shall we avoid it for our examination or studies? But let me tell you, there is always something constitutional, legal in this news, between the lines or in the headlines, जो आपको ध्यान में रखना है for your examination. And that is why we are going to deal with this topic in a most lucid manner. तो अगर आपकी इजाज़त हो, so let's start with our today's issue, which will have various terms, defamation and disqualification of MPs. So, what are we going to deal in this particular episode, or we are going to deal with this particular news? First of all, we have to understand that why is this topic in news? ऐसा क्या है कि defamation, disqualification ये news में है? Then there is something called Lok Sabha notification which came out regarding this news. We will briefly look at it so that we can get a hint कि हमें क्या चीज़ जानना है और क्या चीज़ नहीं. We will talk about Article 102, which is very much related to this particular news. Then we will talk about the Representation of People Act 1951, followed by how this disqualification works, and finally we will ponder around a word called defamation. ठीक है, लेकिन इससे पहले let me tell you that there will be various developments in the coming times around this particular news. We don't have to see the political angle of it, but जो already constitution में है, जो legal procedure में है, जो terms काफ़ी news में already आते हैं, constitutional articles जो आते हैं, उस पे हमें focus करना है. So we have to focus on what is already there, which may be basic or a little advanced, but for your examination, very relevant. So let's begin. So let's have a brief idea that why is this particular issue in so much of news. Now, you must have read in your newspaper, in headlines, in the Indian Express, that Wayanad MP Rahul Gandhi's membership of parliament was cancelled, or he was disqualified following his conviction and sentencing by local court in Surat. So a lot of news and noise around this particular topic has been going on, जो कि मैं आपसे पहले से कहता आ रहा हूँ. तो आपको जो political development है उसको side में रखिए and look at the nitty-gritties of the educational point of view, the constitutional point of view, the legal perspective. उस चीज़ को focus करिए, चाहे वो directly article में हो या ना हो, between the lines हो, you have to focus on those issues. Okay, so ये एक थोड़ा सा brief background है. Now, what does the Lok Sabha notification say? So, when Mr. Rahul Gandhi was disqualified, or his membership went, what was the Lok Sabha Secretariat came out with a kind of notification, और उस notification में क्या लिखा हुआ है इसको थोड़ा briefly हम पढ़ लेते हैं. And it says that Rahul stands disqualified from the membership of Lok Sabha from the date of his conviction, that is 23rd March 2023, in terms of the provisions of Article 102, 1 subclause E of the Constitution of India, read with Section 8 of our Representation of the People Act 1951, जो कि RPA है. So, you see, the crux here is, where to focus. As a UPSC aspirant, आपकी नज़र किस पे जानी चाहिए? आपकी नज़र जानी चाहिए इस पर्टिकुलर आर्टिकल पे जो कि 102 है और सेक्शन 8 ऑफ रिप्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ पीपल एक्ट. तो आपको तुरंत हिट करना चाहिए, should hit you directly that why is this important. Okay, therefore this news becomes important for your examination point of view also, though you may argue that it's mostly political in nature. Now, let's see what Article 102 says. But before that, let's see what are various ways in which disqualification is mentioned in the Constitution or in other valid areas related to law. So, disqualification of a lawmaker is prescribed in 3 situations. So, remember, 3 situation में disqualification जो होता है वो prescribed है. Alright, so this you have to remember. First is through Article 102(1) and 191 clause 1 for disqualification of member of parliament and a member of legislative assembly respectively. तो ये आपको ध्यान में रखना है. जो पहला है that is 102 clause 1 and 191. So these two are there. 102 is for the MP and 191 clause 1 is for the MLAs. Okay, so as I was telling you that there's a recent development in Kerala, I suppose, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, where there has been some development over the news related to some other political person or the MLA. You can write down and comment in the box below. Now, the grounds here include holding an office of profit. So 102(1) and 191 clause 1, the grounds क्या हैं इस पे disqualification के, ये आपको ध्यान में रखना है because this can come in the form of your MCQs. Okay, so the grounds here include an office of profit, being of unsound mind, or insolvent or not having valid citizenship. So ये सारे areas, reasons हो सकते हैं because of which a particular MP or a MLA can be disqualified under what circumstances or under what rule? Under these articles of the Constitution of India. Okay, so remember Article 102 clause 1 and Article 191 clause 1. Now moving ahead, the second prescription, so your pehla prescription hai, that is directly related to your Constitution of India. Second is in the 10th schedule of the Constitution. So remember the 10th schedule of the Constitution, which provides for the disqualification of the members on grounds of defection. So defection, and defection पे बहुत सारे questions आते हैं. There have been questions, objective questions as well as descriptive questions which will test your factual knowledge and analytical knowledge. So you should have a brief idea about a lot of cases around defamation and what the Constitution says. You should remember the 10th schedule is the second prescription under which a MP or an MLA can be disqualified. So this is your second. So first was the direct articles from the Constitution. The second here is your 10th schedule of the Constitution. When we come to the third prescription, that is your Representation of the People's Act, RPA, which is 1951. This law provides for disqualification for conviction in criminal cases. Okay, so these are the 3 prescriptions. Now, before going, in detail with Article 102, because it is, in more context to the news, I would just like to tell you that अभी आप ये चीज़ समझ रहे होंगे that when you are reading this particular news, which is a burning issue these days, आपको किस एंगल से इस न्यूज़ से आपको अपने मतलब की बात एक्सट्रैक्ट करनी है. You have to extract what is relevant for you. So wherever you see these articles, these are relevant for you. Okay, so Article 102, if we go little in detail, because it's important to, there can be a question specifically on Article 102. So Article 102 deals with the disqualification of MPs from either house of the Parliament. Now the part 1 of it, okay, so the part 1 of this article lists 3 reasons why MP can be disqualified. So I am going little in detail ताकि इसमें अगर tough से tough question बने, you are able to solve it. So part 1 of this article lists the reasons why an MP can be disqualified. This includes A, if he holds any office of profit under the government of India or the government of any state other than an office declared by Parliament by law not to disqualify its holder. तो कुछ ऐसे offices होते हैं, आप MP MLA होने के बाद भी you can preside over that office. Okay, but there are certain offices which you cannot, and that is Office of Prophet. Okay, there have been a lot of questions around Office of Prophet. There have been, in the past, there have been issues around Office of Prophet in the previous government regime also. So probably you can mention in the comment box the definition of Office of Prophet, but it's clearly mentioned here, so you may skip. तो इसमें है क्या कि कुछ ऐसे organizations हैं, offices हैं, जिसको Parliament allow करता है कि आप with being an MP or MLA you can still preside over them, but there are certain which you are not. So if you are holding an offices which the Parliament doesn't allow, that is an Office of Prophet and you can be disqualified. Okay, I don't think we need to go in more detail regarding this. The second here is if he is of unsound mind and stands so declared by competent court. So there should be a competent court जहाँ पे the court decides whether this person is of sound mind or unsound mind. अगर वो MP, MLA and in this case MP, because you're talking about Article 102, is declared as unsound mind, he is disqualified. Okay. Now before going ahead, a little recap, maybe you can answer. Which is the article which we discussed in the previous slides, which talks about disqualification of MLA? Okay, so just go back to it and comment in the box. Let me see if you're paying attention or not. So now look at the C part. If he is an undischarged insolvent. Now what is an undischarged insolvent? It's not a political term. It's not it's not a polity term. It's mostly an economical term. Okay, so it doesn't matter if your English is good or not, but you should know what is undischarged insolvent. Maybe you can comment in the box and let me see how many of you are right. Okay, the answer will be definitely given to you. So who is an undischarged insolvent? It's related to, if I give you a hint, it's related to debts. Okay, and I think that is the answer. So if he is an undischarged insolvent. Now let's see the next part, which is D. If he is not a citizen of India, okay, there's no brownie point for it, definitely, or has voluntarily acquired the citizenship of a foreign state, or is under any acknowledgement of allegiance or adherence to a foreign state. तो कहीं भी अगर आपकी citizenship संदेह में है, or simply you are not a citizen of India, definitely you are disqualified. Then the next point is if he is so disqualified by or under any law made by Parliament. तो एक ये scope दे दिया है कि if Parliament makes any particular law which gives some points of disqualification of particular member, he or she is disqualified. So this is Article 102 in detail. I don't think you need to go beyond this. Okay, but since Article 102 is in so much news, a little depth is needed. Now let us talk about what is Representation of People Act 1951. As I mentioned in the first two slides or first three slides, that RPA is also one of the criteria. So what is RPA and how the disqualification happens under RPA 1951? As you see, it's an act, so it's not directly in the Constitution. Okay, so the RPA or the Representation of People Act 1951 is an act of Parliament of India, and it provides the following conditions. First, conduct of election of the House of Parliament and to the House or Houses of the Legislature of each state. So what does RPA does? सबसे पहले तो election conduct कराने का एक it gives the rules and regulations kind of things. Then it talks about the qualification and disqualification for membership of these houses. Okay, so it's a framework. What the Constitution doesn't give, RPA fills those gaps. So RPA tells how to conduct the election. It tells what is the qualification and disqualification of membership of these houses. Then it says the corrupt practices and other offences or in connection with such elections and the decision of doubts and disputes arising out of or in connection with such elections. So जो भी संदेह हो related to the election, conducting election, whether it's corrupt practices or in connection with elections decisions, if there is any doubt, RPA provides you a roadmap. ठीक है, एक आपको पथ देता है जिसपे you can walk conveniently. So what the Constitution is not giving, RPA is filling those gaps. Next, it was introduced in Parliament by Law Minister Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. So it is that relevant. You know, it comes from directly from the from our framers of the Constitution, B.R. Ambedkar. So that's why you should understand. And by the way, RPA is specifically mentioned in your syllabus. और घुमा फिरा के कहीं ना कहीं आपसे पूछ लिया ही जाता है, whether it is in your prelims or in your mains and maybe in your interview now. So if we go in little more detail, there are several provisions that deal with disqualification in RPA. So now we are coming to our main issue here in the RPA कि RPA में disqualification के criteria क्या है? What are the criteria in RPA related to disqualification? Now there are various sections. For example, section 9, 10 and 11. These three sections particularly talk about the disqualification. Okay, so 9 क्या कहता है? 9 deals with disqualification for dismissal for corruption or disloyalty and for entering into government contracts while being a lawmaker. Okay, so it deals with, you know, the disqualification कैसे? If you are corrupt, if you are disloyal, or you are entering into government contracts. So these are the, you know, several criteria in which under section 9, so remember in the question they can play with section 9, 10 and 11. Under section 9, ye areas हैं where you can be declared disqualified. Similarly, when we come to section 10, now section 10 deals with disqualification for failure to lodge an account for election expenses. So, you know, there is a particular criteria where you have to declare कि इतना expenses हुआ, इससे ज़्यादा आप नहीं कर सकते, you know, and when you fail to, you know, tell that how much expenses you have done or you've gone over it, anything like that, you are declared disqualified, and that comes under section 10. Now let's see section 11, which is a key provision here, deals with disqualification for corrupt practices. So these are three important sections in RPA. Now, when we talk about section 8, okay, why I'm doing it separately? Because this might, you know, lead to our topic. Is section 8 of the RPA deals with disqualification for conviction of offenses. Okay, so now this is the area where the Congress MP has been disqualified. Okay, so that is the section 8. If you are disqualified, if you are convicted for any particular offense. तो offense अगर आपने किया है और आप convicted हो, तो section 8 RPA आपको disqualify करता है. तो हमने 4 ऐसे sections पढ़े, 9, 10 and 11, which is not related to directly to our topic, but you should have an idea, and section 8. Now the provision is aimed at, quote, preventing criminalization of politics. Now, why do I mention this here? Because when you're writing a mains answer, where you have to go descriptive, there can be a simple question on prevention of criminalization of politics, and what are your views on it? Then you have to give certain basic fodder, and that you will get from section 8 of the RPA. So, the provision is aimed at preventing criminalization of politics and keeping tainted lawmakers from contesting elections. So this is something which should go in your introduction of any question which is based on preventing criminalization in politics. Now, since section 8 is very valid here, along with article 102, so we go in a little detail. I would also let you know about, you know, where these in the recent past, where these sections have been used, which you might not quote in your answer, but just for your understanding, revision and retention of the topic, you might, you know, use these. So first disqualification is triggered for conviction under certain offences listed in section 8 clause 1 of the Representation of the People's Act. This includes specific offences. कौन से offences include होते हैं? Promoting enmity between two groups, दो groups के बीच enmity create करना, bribery, and undue influence or personation of at an election. तो ये जो क्राइटेरियाज हैं ये सेक्शन 8(1) में है. अब अगर आपको इसको लिंक करना है to something which has happened in recent past, so you should not quote it in your answer, but just to have an understanding, senior Samajwadi Party leader Azam Khan lost his Uttar Pradesh Assembly membership in October 2022 after he was convicted in a hate speech case. Defamation does not fall in this list. This is something which I wanted to highlight, because a question can come that it's in Section 8 Clause 1 that defamation comes. No, defamation does not fall in this list. And how would you connect is that Azam Khan, who was a Samajwadi Party leader, was convicted in hate speech case. Okay, so this is Section 8 Clause 1. This has to be remembered, that defamation does not fall in this particular list. Section 8 Clause 2 also lists offences that deal with hoarding or profiteering, adulteration of food or drugs, and for conviction and sentence of at least 6 months for an offence under any provision of the Dowry Prohibition Act. So 8(2) में ये सारे criteria हैं, which also include Dowry Prohibition Act. This is one highlight here, but also hoarding, profiteering, adulteration of food or drugs. So you see, you should make a particular, crux, a list where these things are valid and what are not valid under these particular section, as we see that defamation is not. Now let's come to Section 8 Clause 3, which states, and pay attention to this: a person convicted to any offence and sentenced to imprisonment for not less than 2 years shall be disqualified from the date of such conviction. From the date of such conviction is something which you have to keep in mind. There's a lot of debate going around it, but Section 8 Clause 3 says this: for a further period of 6 years since his release. So this is what Section 8 Clause 3 clearly mentioned, which I have mentioned in the code. Now remember that when you are preparing for your examination, what exact quote is there in the constitution or particular act, that is important. That is what you should follow. Okay, not the the second hand or the copy pasted text. What you have to follow is exactly what is written in the constitution or the act, and this act specifically talks what I have written under code. This is the provision under which Rahul Gandhi has been disqualified. So this is one of the reasons, or this is the major one of the reason why disqualification happened in the case of the Congress leader Rahul Gandhi. Anyway, so you don't have to focus on this part, because nobody is going to ask you कि Rahul Gandhi किस section के अंदर disqualified हुए, but you have to know that Section 8 Clause 3 talks about defamation. Now, or conviction. Now, let's see that how does the disqualification works. Okay, so very briefly, let me just read it out and then probably you will understand. The disqualification can be reversed. So if you are disqualified, that can be reversed if a higher court grants a stay on the conviction or decides the appeal in favor of the convicted lawmaker. Like in any case, okay, so if the higher court grants stay or gives a decision in favor of the convicted lawmaker, your disqualification can be reversed. Now, significantly, the stay cannot merely be a suspension of sentence under Section 389 of the CRPC, but a stay of conviction. So, conviction pe stay hoga. Okay, it cannot be the suspension of the sentence. Ki sentence ko suspend kiya gaya. It is going to be a stay on the conviction. So, when the conviction is stayed, disqualification can be reversed. So these ये बारीकियां हैं जो आपको ध्यान में रखनी है. This particular thing can be asked, it can be twisted. Okay, so there will be no suspension, cannot merely be a suspension, but there can be a stay on the conviction, and therefore your disqualification or the MPs MLAs disqualification can be reversed. Okay, so ये बारीकी जो है, ये जो छोटी मोटी बातें हैं, this is something which you have to keep in mind. Then over the years, the law has changed when it comes to disqualification. You know, there have been amendments, a lot of changes. One particular change is under the RPA section 8 clause 4, which stated that the disqualification takes effect only, and I quote, after 3 months have elapsed from the date of conviction. तो ये एक section under RPA section 8.4 में ये था कि 3 महीने का, you know, there was a time, but this has been changed, this has been amended, this has been finished off. Within that period, lawmaker could file an appeal against the sentence before the High Court. तो ये जो पहले जो ये section 8 clause 4 था, इसमें this time period was given, which is 3 months, where the lawmaker can go to the High Court and appeal. But this has been changed, and this change has come due to this 2013 ruling. You have to definitely know the case. This is Lily Thomas versus Union of India. Okay, Lily Thomas versus Union of India. The Supreme Court struck down section 8 clause 4 of the RPA as unconstitutional. So probably they will not ask कि कौन सा clause जो है वो remove हुआ है, but they can ask you under which is the landmark judgment. This is 2003 ruling in Lily Thomas versus Union of India. Just a tidbit for you that this is what has allowed the Lok Sabha Secretariat to immediately disqualify Rahul Gandhi. But there's a lot of debate around this, that whether the Secretariat is authorized to do it or not. We have to see the development of the news. We have to see if this Congress party goes to higher court, what is the judgment there. These things we are not dealing right now. Okay, you will have a lot of development in the news articles and editorials, but you have to remember what has been highlighted in blue here. Now I thought there's a lot of talking about disqualification. Let's understand what is defamation. Okay, in general terms, you know what is defamation, but when it comes to big offices, positions of power, prestige, okay, position where you can be a role model to so many people, where what you say can affect the society, not only that person. So this term defamation comes in a lot of news. All right, but there is an understanding required constitutionally, legally, that where is defamation as a word and what does it mean. Okay, so it might not come directly in examination, but you never know in the interview or personality test, or maybe in the prelims they might ask you. So since this is so much in news, so I thought maybe we'll discuss about it. So defamation is a wrong that deals with damage caused to a person's reputation. This is a general statement. आप लोग के साथ भी आपको लगता होगा, ऐसा होता होगा कि defamation हो रहा है, isn't it? But this is a general statement. In India, how defamation is an offense, that is something which we have to understand. So defamation can be both civil wrong and a criminal offense, depending on the objectives they seek to achieve. So it can be a civil, civil case also, and there can be a criminal offense also. So defamation is not always criminal in nature. ये आपको ध्यान में रखना है. Let's understand the civil wrong. A civil wrong sees a wrong being redressed with monetary compensation. So if there is a civil case, there's a civil angle to the defamation. Monetary अगर आप compensate कर दें तो रफा दफा हो जाता है मामला. While a criminal law seeks to punish a wrongdoer and send a message to others not to commit such acts with a jail term. So it's just like any civil case or criminal case. So you have to go to jail. In a criminal case, defamation has to be established beyond reasonable doubt. But in a civil defamation suit, damages can be awarded based on probabilities. Now this is an important point. यही चीज जो है वो civil और criminal offense को defamation में अलग कर देता है कि जब criminal है तो obviously आपको जेल जाना पड़ेगा. Okay, so these are the two things which you have to keep in mind. One is when is it a criminal offense, when is it a civil wrong. So उसमें क्या अंतर है, that you have to keep in mind. Now So that's what I thought कि defamation के बारे में भी clarity हो. And to bring it into context, I want to discuss a little bit about section 499 of the IPC. Now, when you see section 499 of the IPC, it defines, it tells us that what amounts to criminal defamation. Okay. And subsequent provisions define its punishment. तो definition है कि defamation क्या है, that is under section 499 of IPC. So you have to remember that, it comes under IPC that it defines defamation. Similarly, when we talk about section 499, it elaborates in a way how defamation could be through words. So it goes in detail. ऐसा नहीं है that it's in air. It goes in details. It's words spoken or intended to be read through signs and also through visible representations. These can either be published or spoken. So ऐसा ज़रूरी नहीं है कि मंच पे बोला गया ही शब्द जो है that causes defamation. We have lot of instances where defamation can be caused by writings. Okay, so published or spoken about a person with the intention of damaging reputation of that particular person, or with the knowledge or reason to believe that the imputation will harm his reputation. So there are these aspects also. So section 499 is something which you must keep in mind. So defamation is defined where, if that is a question, say, is it defined in the Constitution or Representation of People Act? No, it is defined in section 499 of the IPC. It is not only spoken words, but also intended words, written words, anything of that sort. Okay, so that is something which you have to keep in mind. Now here is a MCQ. Now this particular MCQ, directly or indirectly related to this topic, comes in the year 2020 of the UPSC prelims examination. And what does it say? Now I want you to read it carefully, okay, and answer in the comment box. Let us see if you know the answer. The intention here is that you should answer, make a wild guess, to take any logic possible, but try to attempt. Also because it has already appeared in examination, so you must try. What is the question? Consider the following statements. According to the Constitution of India, a person who is eligible to vote can be made a minister in a state for 6 months, even if he or she is not a member of the legislature of that particular state. What is the sentence? थोड़ा बड़ा sentence है, आराम से पढ़िए, but you should know. According to the Constitution of India, a person who is eligible to vote can be made a minister in a state for 6 months, even if she is not a member of the legislature of that state. Please remember the time frame it is talking about and also the logic behind the statement. The second, according to the Representation of People Act 1951, a person convicted of a criminal offence and sentenced to imprisonment for 5 years is permanently disqualified from contesting an election even after his release from prison. Okay, so these are two sentences. One is basically it's talking about who is eligible to vote and made a minister, and the second one directly talks about Representation of People Act 1951. We have just read it. So even if you know the second statement, you can try the options. So second statement was, according to the Representation of People Act 1951, a person convicted of a criminal offence and sentenced to imprisonment for 5 years is permanently disqualified from contesting an election after his release from prison. Now, which of the statement given above is or are correct? One only, two only, both 1 and 2, neither 1 or 2. Now you should not even take more time, because if you are taking a lot of time in this question, it's not judicious. Okay, so you must reply in the comment box, and we'll see if you're right or wrong. Make a wild guess, take risk. This is not your final examination. It's better to make mistake here than in your final exams. Look at the next question, and this is again something which we have recently done. there are 3 statements and you have to say that how many of the above 3 statements are correct. So if you've seen the previous trend of the questions, they have started asking how many pairs are correct, for example. Here we have done how many sentences are correct. So you have to see accordingly. First, in the landmark 2013 ruling in Lily Thomas versus Union of India, it should ring a bell in your mind. The Supreme Court struck down section 8(4) of the RPA as unconstitutional. Is the statement correct or not? You have to tell. Second, 10th schedule of the Constitution provides for the disqualification of the members on the grounds of defection. These 2 statements I'm telling you are very easy. Even if you have watched the video in a flash, you must know. The third, Article 102 Clause 1 provides for disqualification of a member of Parliament on the grounds which include holding an office of profit, being of unsound mind or insolvent, or not having valid citizenship. So all the criteria you have to see whether they are in relation to Article 102, the section 1 is correct or not. How many of the above statements are true? So how many of these statements are correct? Only 1 of the 3, only 2 of the 3, all 3 statements are correct, or none of the above. The D option is none of the above. So you have to find out which statement is correct, which statement are not, count it and then give your answer. It is an easy question if in case you have seen the video properly. Okay, so and I've been stressing on these points regularly. Now here is a point to ponder before we end the video for today, and that is law of criminal defamation a threat to freedom of speech and expression? This is a question. This is a point to ponder. You can give your points in pros and cons, both sides, or maybe just one side. Try to take a constitutional stand. Try to take a stand which is based on facts, on articles, rulings of the Supreme Court, and probably then that answer looks fit for your UPSC examination. So the point to ponder, I'll repeat, is law of criminal defamation a threat to freedom to speech and expression? By the way, a lot of answers or a lot of points you will get from the explain section of the Indian Express, from the editorial of the Indian Express and the UPSC Essentials. So that's it for today. We'll come back with some new topic, new issue, new terms and maybe more in the UPSC Essentials videos next time. Remember to subscribe for the UPSC Essentials Indian Express YouTube channel, and also go through the UPSC Essential articles which are daily affairs. Before going, as I say always, think smart, work hard, conquer your goal.